Jyotirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitan Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Kritam Rapaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tan Maitaya Taravo Binedus Tam Savabhutam Hridayam Munimanatusmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudidayat Abhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshai Kiptashtakamadi Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanadavindam Tavevasmi Najivami Tvayavina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So we begin by offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalila Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pad Asta Tarasata Srisimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada and Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalila Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pad Asta Tarasat Srisimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj under our exalted Upanuga Guru Varga and all the assembled Vaishnavas Vaishnavis. So, we're preparing for Sri Krishna Janmashtami coming up Saturday. And yesterday we started reading Srila Prabhupada's Krsna book. And we read from the first chapter, we got up to the end of page 5. It did not record, so anyway, we're just going to continue on. But what we heard was that the world was overburdened with demoniac men who were posing as kings, but were actually demons, and therefore there's so much disruption in the worldly order. And with that disruption, Mother Bhumi was very distraught because Dharma was being violated. Dharma, that is which the welfare and progress and benefit of the world is resting on, the rules of Dharma. And so how could she benefit the world, how she could supply the necessities for humanity? So she went to Lord Brahma, and it was stated that any demigod with responsibility, oversight, management responsibilities, can go to Lord Brahma. And then he, as the father of all the demigods, the original creator of this material universe, and the guru for all, he goes to the place of the planet of Kshirodakshai Vishnu, along with the demigods. And on the ocean of milk, on the shore, they all pray. And they pray Purusha Shukta prayers. But Lord Brahma goes into internal meditation in order to receive the message. And the message he received was that, yes, I am going to appear very soon, along with my own energy, and my first expansion, and that the demigods should also appear. Some should appear before me as older relatives and friends and associates in the Yadu dynasty, both in Braj and in the Mathura area. And then he was saying that then I will appear. And then we go to the scene where Kamsa is accompanying Devaki and Vasudeva, who have just been married. Vasudeva, the son of Surasen, who is the son of Parjanya, who was the son of Devamita. Devamita is the father of Parjanya and Surasane. So Parjanya and Surasane are cousin brothers, but Parjanya was the son of the Vaishya wife of Devamita, and Surasane is the son of the Kshatriya wife of Devamita. And so Parjanya became the leader of the Vaishya community in the greater Mahavan area, and Surasane became the king in that greater area of Mathura. And from Surasane comes Vasudeva, and from Parjanya comes Nanda and his brothers. Right? So they're related. Right? We would call them second cousins, Vasudeva and Nanda and his brothers. But in India, they don't make that distinction, you know. You could be a 10th cousin, you know, you're still a cousin. So anyway, they're very close. They were very close, right? So Kamsa is accompanying Devaki and Vasudeva. They'd just been married, huge dowry, and was given by the father of Devaki, Devak, was also like a king, local king. And somehow or other, I can't remember, some kind of adopted daughter, right? Because Kamsa is the son of Ugrasena and Padmavati. But he was a demon born because actually Padmavati was violated by a demon and she conceived this child. And Ugrasena still accepted and raised this child, but Kamsa is very demoniac. Very powerful, but very demoniac. And so while they were driving on this chariot, celebrating this glorious wedding, along with all the dowry and big parade and everything, a voice from the sky came and said, Kamsa, you're such a fool. You do not know that the son of your sister, the 8th child, will kill you. And so Kamsa, without a second thought, grabs her hair, prepared to chop off her head, pulls his sword. Everyone astonished. And Vasudeva, at that point, knowing he can't defeat Kamsa physically, tries in every way to persuade him with diplomatic consideration from the point of view that you are a respected personality, great Kshatriya king. How could you do such a thing? No one would ever kill a woman or a sister on their wedding day. Your reputation will be destroyed. That doesn't deter Kamsa one bit, because as the ultimate narcissist, the only thing that he's concerned with is his own welfare. And any decision he makes is based on his own self-interest. So he goes on and gives other explanations, like the body is temporary, we all know that. You're only going to live a certain amount of time anyway. Whenever we die, and then we take another birth. So why are you worried? And even if you live longer because you've killed the child or the mother of the child, what will be your fate at the end of that? Because we're all responsible for our good and bad deeds, right? So in so many ways, he's logically, reasonably trying to convince Kamsa. So we left off, and then Srila Prabhupada continues in this extraordinary book, this book which is all of the 10th canto, but Srila Prabhupada is also including not just the verses in his narration, in the narrative, but also the revelations and commentary from previous acharyas like Jiva Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and his own realizations and special input to make this accessible to the world. Because the world had never been exposed to anything like this, the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so Srila Prabhupada's special mission was to make this. So sometimes he's explaining things, the background, the culture, to make it more understandable. So Vasudeva thus requested Kamsa not to be envious of his newly married sister. One should not be envious of anyone, because envy is the cause of fear, both in this world and in the next, when one is before Yamaraj. Right, because envy, it creates a sense of jealousy, right? It's jealousy. And then you may act inappropriately against that person, right? Or to try to achieve something that person has that you think you don't have, and you become bewildered by the wrong kinds of goals, right? And furthermore, when you envy another person and you meditate on them, whatever you think is wrong with them, you're meditating on, and that quality is coming into your own heart. Whatever people are going to be and do, they're going to be and do, right? We can be the well-wishers and concerned, but we should never be envious. Which is why in the very beginning of the Bhagavatam, Dharmak projita kaitavo tra paramo nirmat saranam satam. Bhagavatam is spoken and is understandable by those great persons, those satam, who are nirmatsara, with no envy. And then later in the verse, sadyo hridya varujate, right? And because of that, Krishna says, I illuminate their heart and I give them prema, just by hearing the Bhagavatam. But he also says, and we mentioned this, I think we mentioned this yesterday, we should mention this over and over, that anyone who hears the Bhagavatam, Krishna captures and claims. And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, what to speak of someone who hears with some faith. They also get prema. Anybody who hears the Bhagavatam will ultimately get prema. The nirmat saranam satam, they get immediately. Those who hear with some faith, not so qualified, they will still get it very soon. Very soon. Maybe in this lifetime, maybe in a few lifetimes, right? But it will come. What's a lifetime in the analysis and the expanse of time? It's nothing. So, Vasudeva appealed to Kamsa on behalf of Devaki, stating that she was his younger sister. He also appealed at an auspicious moment, at the time of marriage. A younger sister or brother are supposed to be protected as one's children. Quote, the position is overall so delicate, Vasudeva reasoned, that if you kill her, it will go against your high reputation. Vasudeva tried to pacify Kamsa by good instruction as well as by philosophical discrimination. But Kamsa was not to be pacified because his association was demoniac. Because of his demoniac associations, he was always a demon, although he was born in a very high royal family. A demon never cares for any good instruction. He is just like a determined thief. One can give him moral instruction, but it will not be effective. Similarly, those who are demoniac or atheistic by nature can hardly assimilate any good instruction, however authorized it may be. That is the difference between demigod and demon. So we have to ask ourselves, when we receive good instruction, are we assimilating it? In regards to bhakti, right? The practice, and the instructions on how to serve, how to associate, how to live. Are we assimilating them or not? If we are, that's divine. That's devotee quality. And if we're not, that's still our demon qualities resisting. There's that really lovely story of one devotee coming up to Srila Prabhupada and saying, oh, Srila Prabhupada, he was so happy and enthusiastic. I feel now like I'm at least 50% devotee. And Srila Prabhupada looked at him and wryly says, yes, 50% devotee means 50% demon. Yeah. We can't get carried away by our progress and think that we've made it. I mean, it's good. We should be encouraged by any progress we make. And our faith should increase by that. Yes, I'm making progress, but we should not become lax. And we always have to see, can I even do the basics? Right? Do I want to see Radha and Krishna and serve them when they wake up at Mangalartik? Right? Do I want to do that? Or do I want to sleep in and remain in deep ignorance? Right? It's such a slap in the face when you think about it, right? Krishna's come to us Radhika's come to us, her associates have come to us, our gurus are there, and they're waking up to begin their seva, Nishanta Lila, right? The end of the night, and we don't want to show up. So if we want to show up for that, how can we say that we're eager about bhakti? We can't really. We can't. So that's at least that, right? And the same with classes, same thing with chanting. And then all the other things that we talk about, right? How to serve, how to honor Vaishnavas, how to serve Vaishnavas. You have to take this seriously. And Krishna says, yatamam prapadyante. Kamsa didn't take it seriously. He's the ultimate demon. He's still prepared to kill his sister. So, that's the difference between demigod and demon. Those who can accept good instruction and try to live their lives in that way are called demigods. And those who are unable to take such good instructions are called demons. I'm weak, I'm tired, I'm unable. Demon. I mean, it's true. We've all got that. That's why Krishna spends so much time in Bhagavad Gita, divine and demoniac nature. You have to be able to discern and discriminate and try so hard to, avoid, to rid ourselves of those demoniac weaknesses. And Krishna will help. Guru will help. Mahaprabhu, Nityananda, Baladev, Akhanda Guru Tattva. We just heard so much about him. Now, failing in his attempt to pacify Kamsa, Vasudeva wondered how he would protect his wife Devaki. When there is imminent danger, an intelligent person should try to avoid the dangerous position as far as possible. But if in spite of endeavoring by all intelligence, one fails to avoid the dangerous position, there is no fault on his part. One should try his best to execute his duties, but if the attempt fails, he is not at fault. So that means also in our practice, devotional service, we make a lot of plans. We have a lot of ideas what we want to do, what we'd like to accomplish. We have a vision, hopefully inspired in our heart by our Guru's instructions. Not everything comes to fruition. Even Srila Prabhupada had so many plans, not all came to fruition, but the planning is very important. In the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan, in Srila Prabhupada's quarters, there's a Almira there. And in the Almira is a little tiny diary, and Srila Prabhupada wrote different things in it, different plans, different ideas. And in one place, he writes, Rajiv Gandhi, king. What's her name? Oh, Indira Gandhi, who was his mother, Queen Mother. He had this idea that India would be best be served by a monarchy. Even a monarchy of such unqualified persons as them was better than what they had. And there are other things. He wanted that some varnashram system be implemented because it's favorable for society. It creates the conditions by which unqualified people can gradually be regulated from sinful behavior into pious behavior and awaken the idea that service to God is the underlying function. If you want to be happy and successful in this world, you worship God. This is Dharma. This is the essential principle of Dharma. And of course, it has many levels of understanding, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur explained in the extraordinary Chaitanya Shikshamrita. So we should try. And Gurudev said that too. He said, to try is bhakti. You may not be successful. And that applies in our vision of service and preaching, and it also applies in our attempts to advance in bhakti and in our practice, personal practice. So nobody goes from, 0 to 100 right away. We stumble, we fall, we get up. But there's a nice verse that, when one is running, one may stumble on the ground and fall. But that very ground which caused one to stumble is the means by which you put down your hand and it helps you and you get up and you try again. Right? What do they say in the West? When you want to learn to ride, you fall off the horse, get up on the horse, and try again, right? Don't give up. So, don't get discouraged. Get a little annoyed at yourself, but, keep trying. Vasudeva thought of his wife as follows. For the present, let me save the life of Devaki. And later on, if there are children, I shall see how to save them. He further thought, if in the future I get a child who can kill Kamsa, just as Kamsa is thinking, then both Devaki and the child will be saved, because the law of providence is inconceivable. But now, some way or other, let me save the life of Devaki. So he's going to make some sacrifice or compromise in order to prolong the situation and let the will of God be revealed. So we're struggling away here, and nothing ever happens in a day. What do they say in the West? Rome wasn't built in a day. Right? So Bhakti Bandhav isn't built in a day. But let's keep trying, and then somehow let the will of providence manifest itself. But we have to try. There is no certainty how a living entity contacts a certain type of body, just as there is no certainty how the blazing fire comes in contact with a certain type of wood in the forest. When there is a forest fire, it is experienced that the blazing fire sometimes leaps over one tree and catches another by the influence of the wind. Similarly, a living entity may be very careful and fearful in the matter of executing his duties, but it is still very difficult for him to know what type of body he's going to get in the next life. Maharaj Bharat was very faithfully executing the duties of self-realization, but by chance he contacted temporary affection for a deer, and he had to accept his next life in the body of a deer. Right? That's a very powerful instruction. Right? That even somebody as Bharat, who on the platform above, entering into that, and still that distraction caused him to become a little neglectful in his duties. And one day, while searching here and there for the deer, he fell off a cliff and died, thinking of that deer. But then you have to ask, well, how could somebody who's so advanced fall victim to that? Because generally it's understood somebody on that platform will not be afflicted by such minor attachment. It's also explained that Bharat was such a great devotee that the Lord wanted to, one, use him to give a lesson, but two, accelerate his development. So even though he was still young, he lost his life in that body, took the body of a deer, but that body of the deer, he had remembrance of that previous life and his mistake. And so even though he was in the body of a deer, he always associated and lived right next to the ashram of greatly advanced souls, and ate very little and even listened to their discourses. And at the time of his death as a deer, he was able to chant the names of the Lord. And then he took the body of Jadbharat, where he was realized. Right? That bhakti did not leave him. And actually was accelerated. Had he done his normal activities as Bharat, he would have been meditating for 80,000 years to achieve that state. But because he left that body early and he was serving the purpose of the Lord, really, brief life as a deer, and then Jadbharat realized, to the extent that when those demons tried to use him as a human sacrifice, Durga Devi protected him right on the spot. So, and he gave great instruction, right, to Maharaj Rahugana, great saintly life, right, he was able to live. So, Maharaj Bharat, great example. Vasudeva, after deliberating on how to save his wife, began to speak to Kamsa with great respect. Although Kamsa was the most sinful man, just see how controlled Vasudeva was. Sometimes it happens that a most virtuous person like Vasudeva has to flatter a person like Kamsa, a most vicious person. That is the way of all diplomatic transactions. Although Vasudeva was deeply aggrieved, he presented himself outwardly as cheerful. He addressed the shameless Kamsa in that way because he was so atrocious. Vasudeva said to Kamsa, "My dear brother-in-law, please consider, you have no danger from your sister. You are awaiting some danger because you have heard a prophetic voice in the sky. But the danger is to come from the sons of your sister, who are not present now. And who knows, there may or may not be sons in the future. Considering all this, you are safe for the present, nor is there cause of fear from your sister. If there are any sons born of her, I promise that I shall present all of them to you for necessary action." Kamsa knew the value of Vasudeva's word of honor, and he was convinced by his argument. So unlike Kamsa, Vasudeva was a man of his word, right? He upheld Dharma. And Kamsa knew that. Kamsa was extremely intelligent, and as an expert diplomat, he also knew that this very quality of Dharma that was within Vasudeva could be used to control and manipulate him. That's what he's thinking. He'll have to do that because he's promised. Right? Remember when Bali was also very honorable. Even though he was the leader of the demons, he was honorable. And so when his own guru told him to not award what Sri Vamadeva had requested, Bali Maharaj said, "I'm the son of Maharaj Prahlad. How can I withdraw my word? Right? I can't do that. How can I dare cheat a Brahmana? I have given Vamana my word." And he said, and the Bhagavatam said, when a liar steps on her terrain, Mother Earth feels pain. So he upheld even against the advice of his guru, because his guru's advice was not correct. It was against Dharma, and under those conditions, he could reject it. So, and because he was the son of Maharaj Prahlad, he had those dormant devotional qualities within him, and this pastime was meant to bring them out. So, Vasudeva's word. So Kamsa said, "Okay, I'll accept that." Thus, so for the time being, he desisted from the heinous killing of his sister. Thus, Vasudeva was pleased and praised the decision of Kamsa. In this way, he returned to his home. After due course of time, Vasudeva and Devaki gave birth to 8 male children, as well as 1 daughter. When the first son was born, Vasudeva kept his word of honor and immediately brought the child before Kamsa. It is said that Vasudeva was very much elevated and famous for his word of honor, and he wanted to maintain this fame. Although it was very painful for Vasudeva to hand over the newly born child, Kamsa was very glad to receive him. But he became a little compassionate with the behavior of Vasudeva. This event is very exemplary. For a great soul like Vasudeva, there is nothing considered to be painful in the course of discharging one's duty. Just like Krishna told Arjuna, right? You're a Kshatriya, you have to do your duty. So in that, you will have to kill your relatives, etc. But if you don't do it, then you'll be defamed as a Kshatriya. And what you're trying to accomplish by avoiding fighting and ruining your reputation will actually happen if you do avoid fighting. No one will criticize you for fighting by the rules of a Kshatriya. But if you don't do it, you'll be avoiding your dharma. Now that's one level of understanding this, Vasudeva maintaining his duty and his dharma as fame. There's another internal reason which will come up. It is said that a saintly person can tolerate all kinds of miserable conditions of life, A learned man can discharge his duties without awaiting favorable circumstances. A heinous person like Krsna can act in any sinful way, and a devotee can sacrifice everything to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? So, different motives for acting according to one's level. But humanity, human civilization, should at least be on the level of the laws of Dharma. Dharma is what supports the entire universe, right? And proper behavior is that by which one is understood, one's qualities, right? That's how one is understood. So as devotees even, we're supposed to be acting on the highest level to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But as Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes and explains in Chaitanya Shikshamrita, that actually the rules of Dharma pretty much align with the rules of Vaidhi Bhakti. If you're following Vaidhi Bhakti, you're also going to generally act quite dharmically as well. Right? It's just that you have a higher understanding of the purpose of your duties. Right? One in Varnashram may have completely, separate motives. Oh, I just want material happiness. I want elevation in the heavenly planets. I want great knowledge. I want impersonal Brahman realization. Varnashram Dharma has all those carrots in front of them, right, to incline people to good behavior. But a devotee, one in the beginning stages of devotion, understands that all my activities are meant to satisfy the Lord. And while progressing in Vaidhi Bhakti, one may still have those desires, right? But gradually Bhakti is becoming more and more prominent, and those other desires are falling away. So in the beginning of Varnashram, it's Guni Bhuta Bhakti, right? Where my material desires take precedent, and I'm doing what I consider to be bhakti or devotion to get those things. And you pray, right? Oh, give us our daily bread. Give me a Mercedes-Benz. Whatever it is, right? Remember the song? Oh, Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz? The whole world is pervaded by that conception. God as the father order supplier, right? That's the little child. But when the child grows up, they mature, hopefully, and they think so much differently of the Father. My Father's given me so many things for my benefit. Now what can I do for him? Right? Even Varnashram teaches that. They raised you in the beginning. Now your duty is to care for your family members later, now that you've matured. And so when one matures in bhakti, then the service and satisfaction of the Lord becomes more prominent. And the more and more prominent bhakti becomes Pradhani Bhuta Bhakti, right? Bhakti is prominent, the material desires fade away, right? Yat karosi, yaj ashnasi, yaj jahosi dadasi yat. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever charity you give, do it for me, right? Very high verse. Sounds like the ultimate goal, but even that verse, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy quotes it, says, no, that's still external, right? Because you're still acting within the realm of Varnashram. And it's very certainly good, you're dedicating to God, but the activities of the soul, the awareness of the soul, the loving relationship with the Lord has not been awakened yet. So we're on that platform where we're trying to shift the balance, right, between the material motivation and the spiritual. Yeah, anya bilashita shunya, right? Giving up all separate interest, activities that are not meant to please Krishna. Jnana karma jnanavritam, reward-seeking activity that will cover bhakti. The path of philosophical speculation that tends towards impersonalism, also covering bhakti, right? And what is it? As Mahaprabhu said, Nadanam, najanam, na sundarim, kavitam ba jagadisha kamaye, right? We don't want wealth, we don't want material learning, any of these things, right? It will cover bhakti, right? So, after due cost, so they had a child, and they brought it to Krsna. Kamsa became satisfied by the action of Vasudeva. He was surprised to see Vasudeva keeping his promise and being compassionate upon him, and being pleased, he began to speak as follows. "Oh, my dear Vasudeva, you need not present this child to me. I am not in danger of this child. I have heard that the 8th child born of you and Devaki will kill me. Why should I accept this child unnecessarily? You can take him back." So it appears that Vasudeva's calculation was working out. It seemed very dire in the beginning. Let me make this promise. Maybe things will change. Kamsa had a change of heart, right? But we heard something, right? Why is Kamsa so demoniac? Association, right? So then, when Vasudeva was returning home with his firstborn child, although he was pleased by the behavior of Kamsa, he could not believe in him because he knew that Kamsa was uncontrolled. An atheistic person cannot be firm in his word of honor. One who cannot control the senses cannot be steady in its determination. The great politician Chanakya Pandit said, "Never put your trust in a diplomat or in a woman." Those who are, or it also includes men who are attached to women, right? Don't think you got a free ride here. And people used to really object about that. Oh, this is, feminist dialogue. But now more and more people are becoming honest and realizing that there is a part of feminine nature that can be pretty wily and distrustful, not to condemn completely, but every body we have has its own special nature. And nowadays, now that we don't have religion as the foundation of law and order, people are rejecting that. Something as important in society as the sanctity of marriage, nowadays 60% of all marriages in America end in divorce. Right? And of those, 70 to 80% are initiated by ladies, by women. And the reason it is because men aren't religious, so they're not so great in doing their side of the bargain in marriage. And women are not religious, and they're not so great in upholding their side. So when all you want is gratification and material happiness, and the kind of happiness you get in the very beginning of a relationship, and the levels of happiness and sense gratification without a lot of responsibility, then when that fades and the real importance and duties of marriage come forth, then people think, oh, I'm not happy. This person's not making me happy anymore. Let me find another. Right? And it affects everybody. It's a terrible thing. He says if you don't have theism, you can't be firm in your word of honor. You can't be firm in Dharma. Morality actually springs from God. The laws of civilization, using America's example, comes in the Western countries from the Judeo-Christian principles. Whatever is valuable and appropriate in terms of law and morality comes from religion. And Yamaraj instructed his followers, when they came to him to ask about Ajamil, he said, Dharmam hi sakshat bhagavat pranitam. The rules of Dharma and religion come from God. And God gives rules for humanity. And for those on the materialistic platform, you have the Varnashram Dharma, and the gradations of that. Shudras have a certain level of responsibility. Vaishyas more than them. Kshatriyas, more than them, Brahmanas. As you ascend in the Varnashram system to different, what you call castes, not by birth but by quality, then you get greater and greater responsibility and expectations for your behavior. Brahmins most of all. And so Srila Prabhupada said that one who's not acting as a Brahmin can't be considered a Brahmin. These kings, they had the role of king, but they weren't acting as kings. Nowadays, people that are so-called politicians, they're just Shudra. 12th canto of Bhagavatam describes how in the very beginning of Kali Yuga, Shudras began to assume the role of kings. And Brahmanas began to assist them. So both of them lost their qualities. Right? So, at that time, the great sage Narad came to Kamsa. He was informed of Kamsa's becoming compassionate to Vasudeva and returning his firstborn child. Narad was very anxious to accelerate the descent of Lord Krsna as soon as possible. He therefore informed Kamsa that personalities like Nanda Maharaj and all the cowherd men and girls and the wives of the cowherd men in Vrindavan, and on the other side, Vasudeva, his father, Shurasen, and all his relatives, born in the family of Vishnu of the Yadu dynasty, were preparing for the appearance of the Lord. Narad warned Kamsa to be careful of the friends and well-wishers and all the demigods taking birth in those families. Kamsa and his friends and advisors were all demons. Demons are always afraid of demigods. After being thus informed by Narad about the appearance of the demigods in different families, Kamsa at once became alert. He understood that since the demigods had already appeared, Lord Vishnu must be coming soon. He had once arrested both his brother-in-law Vasudeva and Devaki and put them behind prison bars. Right? So what did Srila Prabhupada say? That Narad wanted Krishna to appear as soon as possible. So, as amazing as it seems, he's accelerating and he's saying, okay, Kamsa, you really should kill this child. But why would he do that? Because, again, he wants to accelerate out of prem, but there's a backstory to this too. Each of those children that were to be born by Devaki had been demigods previously, and they had been cursed for some offense to take birth in the material world. And by having them killed, then immediately that curse was lifted and they could assume their posts again. Right? So if you're strictly on the bodily platform and don't understand the transmigration of the soul and the part different souls play in the Leela of the Lord, then you go, oh, how horrible, how could a saint do that? But when you understand the power of prem, love of God, and the ultimate eagerness to see the Lord appear and thus benefit all living entities so much, including Vasudeva and Devaki, because they had prayed for the appearance of the Lord. He had blessed them. Yes, I will appear 3 times. This is the 3rd and penultimate incarnation that they were going to act as father and mother. So Narad is actually on the spiritual platform doing everyone the greatest favor. And to enhance the Leela and to show the cruelty of Kamsa, all right, he did tell him that the Lord's coming. And Kamsa and his demoniac friends were thinking, how he could be anybody, the demigods lie, kill him, kill him, kill him. So now they're in prison. Shackled in iron chains, Vasudeva and Devaki gave birth to a male child year after year. And Kamsa, thinking each of these babies to be the incarnation of Vishnu, killed them one after another. He was particularly afraid of the 8th child, but after the visit of Narad, he came to the conclusion that any child might be Krishna. Therefore, it was better to kill all the babies who took birth of Devaki and Vasudeva, just to make sure. They didn't care anything about their life, right? Like modern people. Oh, it's not anything, it's just a parasite in my womb. Anyway, even if it is a child, I shouldn't condemn that child to a life of uncertainty because I'm poor and I shouldn't raise a poor child. They can't be happy because you're thinking the only important thing is your own welfare and material happiness. And if I'm not well off materially, I can't be happy, and I don't want that. And then also the child wouldn't be happy, so better that it never lived. Oh my God, what a misconception. So, that means anybody who's not happy in this world, we should kill them for their own benefit, right? Go around, every poor child you find living in poverty, kill them all. Go to Africa, kill them all, right? So they don't have to suffer being poor. And that applies to old people too. What is the quality of their life now? They just kill them. Put them on the iceberg, push them off. There are many degraded cultures that do that. They do that, what is it called? Patricide, when you kill the parents. When they're no longer suitable, the nomadic cultures were constantly traveling. When they became unable to travel, they just leave them somewhere and continue to go off. The Nanuits, what we know as Eskimos, when they got, this is what I've heard, they would just put them on the iceberg and with a little food and, bye, Grandma, and there's another group where they would take you up to the top of the highest building and go, oh, hey, Grandpa, what's that down there? What? Push, And then they'd fall and break their bones and die, and then they'd eat them, right? Of course, Grandpa had done that himself any number of times. Hey, let's go up and look at the valley from the roof. No, I don't want to go. Yeah, sure you do. Come on, Gramps. Boom. It's okay to push everybody else, but when it's your time, nobody wants that. It's horrible. But, so, the action of Kamsa is not very difficult to understand. There are many instances in the history of the world of persons in the royal order who have killed father, brother, or a whole family and friends for the satisfaction of their ambitions. Absolutely. You read history, so many kings killing their brothers, sisters killing their sister, anybody who's, a threat to the throne. Elizabeth I killed her own sisters, right? Mary, Queen of Scots, just horrible people. So there is nothing astonishing about this, for the demoniac can kill anyone for their own nefarious purposes and ambitions. And the further you go from religion, the further you go from knowledge of the soul and the principle of transmigration and the knowledge of karma, you think that actions are without ultimate consequence. Whatever you can do now to get happiness, that's the only important thing, right? Or, in some cases, like Vena, who had some idea of this, you become so covered by your own sense of worth and value, you think, oh, I am the king, I have become God. The brahmanas are meant to serve and sacrifice for me, right? In every way, your intelligence becomes distorted and you fall into madness. Kamsa was made aware of his previous birth by the grace of Narad. He learned that in his previous birth, he was a demon of the name Kalanemi, and that he was killed by Vishnu. He, having taken his birth in the Boja family, he decided to become the deadly enemy of the Yadu dynasty. Krishna was going to take birth in that family, and Kamsa was very much afraid that he would be killed by Krishna, just as he was killed in his last birth. He first of all imprisoned his father, Ugrasen, because he was the chief king among the Yadu, Boja, and Andaka dynasties, and he also occupied the kingdom of Shurasen, Vasudev's father. He declared himself the king of all places. And in the Garga Samhita, this description of, he also went around the earth conquering all the demoniac kings and bringing them under his control. So ultimately, Aga, Trinavarta, all of the demons that Krishna ultimately killed, they had been subjected and brought into the service of Kamsa. Right? So that's the end of that chapter. And he says, Srila Prabhupada says, thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the first chapter of Krishna, Advent of Lord Krishna. So I'll read the second chapter, begin that tomorrow. Oh, this is so relishable. Srila Prabhupada is so expert in conveying the joy and the emotion and making it very clear and understandable for us. All right? So, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Gurudev. Jai, jai, jai.